Hi kids, I hope you're having a lovely Christmas time. We've come to the end of our Advent journey, but there's one journey at the end of the Christmas story that we haven't talked about yet. I wonder, can you remember who was it that went to visit Jesus and were led to find him by the brightest, shiniest star? See if you're right when you watch the story shortly, but just first we're going to learn how to make something that will remind us of why it was that Jesus came as a baby the very first Christmas time. We're going to make some Christingles. Let's make our Christingle. Who can we find to help us? We're going to start with our orange. The orange represents the whole world. Next, we're going to add a red tape or ribbon around the middle of the orange, and this represents God's love going all the way around the earth. We're going to take some sweets, pop them on cocktail sticks, and then we're going to stick them in the 4 points in the orange. This represents all the amazing good gifts that God has given us. We're going to carefully make a cut in the top of the orange, and then we're going to place our candle in the top. The candle represents that Jesus is the light of the world. And now our Christingle is ready.
Long ago, God promised to send a king to save his people from their enemies. The people waited a long time for their king, but the time had finally come. Jesus was born in Bethlehem at the same time Herod was king. Was Herod the king God promised? No. Herod was an evil king. God sent a star to show the wise men that Jesus had been born. The wise men traveled to find Jesus. They came to King Herod. "Where is the king of the Jews?" they asked. "We saw his star in the east and have come to worship him." King Herod was very angry. A new king? Herod was king. He assembled all the chief priests and scribes. They looked at what the prophets had written to figure out where Jesus had been born. The chief priests and scribes told King Herod what the prophet Micah had written. "And you, Bethlehem, in the land of Judah, are by no means least among the leaders of Judah, because out of you will come a leader who will shepherd my people Israel." Herod spoke to the wise men in secret. "Go and search carefully for the child. When you find him, report back to me so that I too can go and worship him." But Herod was lying. He didn't want to worship the new king. He wanted to kill him. The wise men followed the star until it led them to Jesus. They went into the house where Jesus was with his mother Mary. The wise men fell to their knees and worshiped Jesus. Then they gave Jesus gifts: gold, frankincense, and myrrh. When it was time for the wise men to go home, God warned them in a dream not to tell Herod where Jesus was, so they took a different way home. After the wise men were gone, an angel appeared to Mary's husband Joseph in a dream. The angel said, "Get up, take the child and his mother, flee to Egypt, and stay there until I tell you. For Herod is about to search for the child to destroy him." So in the middle of the night, Joseph got up and took Mary and Jesus to Egypt, where they would be safe. King Herod was so mad that the wise men didn't tell him where Jesus was, he killed all the boys in Bethlehem under 2 years old, just to make sure he killed Jesus. But he didn't know Jesus and his family had escaped. A while later, when Herod died, an angel spoke to Joseph again in a dream. "Get up, take the child and his mother and go to the land of Israel, because those who sought the child's life are dead." So Joseph did what the angel said. He got up and took Mary and Jesus to Israel. The wise men came to worship Jesus as king. Jesus is the king who will rule forever, as God promised to King David in 2 Samuel. Jesus is the true king who is worthy of all our worship.
Have you ever thought about how important light is? During the day we have the sunlight to help us see around, but after dark we certainly need some more help. I expect you could think of lots of different kinds of lights, and maybe you could write a list of them later, but let's just think about a couple now really quickly. So you could have car headlights. So if you're driving after dark, it's really important to have headlights so the driver can see where they're going and any hazards on the road. Or you can have a lighthouse warning ships of the dangers around them. Or if you're going for a walk after dark, the street lights help you to see where you are so you don't get lost. Or have you ever run quickly into a room after dark and forgotten to switch on the light? I have, and I've bumped into things or tripped over things because I couldn't see them in the dark. So light is really, really important. But we use light to describe other things too, like a bright idea or a light bulb moment. Ping! That moment when you suddenly understand something or recognise something you hadn't known before. Do you know there is another word for a light bulb moment, and it's called Epiphany, and that comes from the 12th night after Christmas, which is called Epiphany, and when we remember the time when the wise men went to visit Jesus. Now I've got some things here to help us think about the story. I've got some sunprint paper and some symbols. So let's go through that story and think about light as we do. So after Jesus had been born, that's when the wise men came into the story. We don't know much about the wise men, but we do know they would come from the east and they were travelling and they were looking for a king. You see, they had seen a star in the sky, and this star was so big and bright and powerful that they believed it was a sign that a very special king had been born, and they wanted to meet that king and worship him. And so they set off following the star, and the star led them. As they followed the light of the star, I'm sure they had many adventures and challenges, but the star led them where they needed to go and kept them safe, until eventually they came to Jerusalem, and they wandered off from the star and went to see Herod. But when they left Herod, the star was still there waiting for them, showing the way to the place where Jesus was. And when they arrived, they went in and saw Jesus, and that's when they had their light bulb moment. The Bible describes the wise men as bowing down and worshipping the baby. This really was a light bulb moment for them, as that they realised that this wasn't just any ordinary baby, not even a baby king, but it was the light of the world. He was holy, a royal leader whose life and death would affect the whole world. It really was for them as if a light had been switched on and they would never be the same again. And the light of the world had made the difference. Let's see if today's light has made any difference to our paper as we take off those symbols. And can you see the light bulb, the star, very faint in the corner, the crown? So this week, whenever you switch on a light, maybe you can think of this picture and remember the light bulb moment when the wise men recognised the light of the world. And also remember that the light of the world is still with you today and wants to keep you safe and show you the way to God.